Well, hello there, sports fans. Welcome to this week's edition of Welding Wisdom Wednesday. I was down here in the shop today and I got to thinking. The other day, it was a guy sitting there and he asked me, says, well, what I need to do? What I need to do for a living? What do you suggest? And I don't know. I'm not you. I can't sit there and say, you need to be a doctor, and you need to be a welder, and you need to be a carpenter, and you need to be an electrician, and you need to be a dentist, because you're always picking at your teeth. No, picking about that, but you know what I'm saying is, yeah, I can't tell you what I think you need to do. All I can tell you is that you need to follow your heart. You need to follow your passion. What you want to do. What have you always wanted to do? When you was a kid, what did you play like you was doing? I ain't talking about playing doctor with the girl next door either. Now y'all get your mind out the gutter. But anyway, I can't tell you what you need to do. I will say this, that you need to follow your dreams of whatever you want to do. Folks says, well, what about being a rig welder? You got any experience? You can't just haul off and go buy a truck and a welding machine and a bed and get that thing all set up, pull up out there on a pipeline job and say, hey, I want to be a rig welder. Don't work that way. That's one of them things you cannot rush. Now, some of it faster than others. Some of you can catch a hold to it quicker than others. I agree with that. But I can promise you, you ain't gonna walk out there and you done been through a high school welding deal and decide you're gonna be a pipeline welder and go out there and get you a job welding on a pipeline. If you are, let's say you wanna become an architect, you wanna do houses, homes, nice homes. In your summers, you need to get you a job as a carpenter's helper or a carpenter in the summers instead of going to a firm and helping them, because all you're gonna learn is what they know and the way they've been doing it. But if you go out there and learn how to put stuff together, then you'll learn how to design things that can be easily put together. Point in fact, a fella called me several years ago. He was building a house for his son, and they had done already had the architect showed up. This was deal, you hear me? And he done showed up and done told all y'all need to do this and this. This goes here and that goes there, and he helped them lay out the floor plan. So they built it that way. The problem came in is this thing had a spiral staircase in it. That wasn't the problem. It had a round room in it. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the spiral staircase came into the round room, and where they come in, two different radiuses, they made a peak. Guy wanted me to come out there and tell him how was that all gonna turn into one? It ain't. You're gonna have to roll another radius the other way, because what should have happened to start with, the architect should have had it drawn up to where this room rolled into the staircase. So then at the top, your staircase treads got wider as this kind of teared off, going this way off of that curve. But anyway, I don't know what and why and all of that, but it did not work out. It ended up with a peak in it the last I heard. He said because the architect, when they confronted him about it, he went to throwing a fit. He was mad because he done got caught because he didn't know what he was doing, or didn't think of that ahead of time, and it was gonna cost him a lot of money. Same thing with an engineer. If you going to school to be a mechanical engineer, let's say you want to work on boilers, you go get you a job at a shutdown in the summer working on boilers. That's what you need to do. so you can learn about boilers and how they actually work and what goes on to them, what goes on to the repairs. Then you can start being a good engineer because you know what's got to be done. I know a lot of engineers think that welders are stupid, but welders ain't as stupid as what they think they are, as the engineer thinks they are. An engineer will sit there and he'll design all of this and, well, this does that and that does that and you need to do it this way. And he's never had to put any of that stuff together. So in theory, in his mind, it'll work, but it won't. I had one guy blow down stacks on the main steam at a boiler. Come straight up out of the building, 90 degrees. And of course, there's a little back pressure in there. It really didn't matter. It was going to atmosphere. It just take it a little longer to blow down. He said, you know, said I made them one time out of 45s. Let me back up. The 90 degrees, it was socket weld elbows. Inside that socket, you got a base of your socket and the end of your tube. Touch them up there, you back them out a little bit because that little bit between the weld and the end of the tube, as it will grow and retract based on the temperature. So if you butt a socket weld up, a tube up in a socket weld, a piece of pipe, and that thing gets hot after a while, it'll crack because that little bit down there is always getting hot and it's pushing on that weld. Anyway, where you got that gap in there, that steam hits it, and it's high pressure. I mean, it's got no color to it. It's pure steam. Because if you got any moisture going into those turbines, that moisture, water will not compress. So it will bust the blades and blow up the turbines. So they have to make sure that's why that water keeps getting circled back through. That's why you got your water walls, and then it catches some steam and it comes back through, and then it goes back through a generator, and then it comes back through and it goes back through an economizer. And then it just keeps circling back through and getting hotter and hotter till it gets all the water cooked out of it. That's why you hear folks talking about, yeah, they check for leaks on them things with a broom because you can't see the steam coming out of it. And that steam, that high pressure steam will cut the straws in the broom. Anyway, getting off to a whole different deal. At that gap, that steam was hitting it and it was starting to cut out on that edge. Well, it wouldn't blow the boiler down. With the second time they was blowing it down, it was already blowing out the side because it done cut that elbow. He did it one time, made them out of 45s. And he said it cuts out faster, and I can't understand why. I asked him, I said, did you not study velocities? I said, you've got less restrictions, so you got a higher velocity coming out of there, and it cuts it quicker. And he looked at me like I was the one that was stupid. You know, I mean, that's simple fact. You know, I told him, I said, well, you can take some, have you some pipe and take it to a company and have it bent. And then you got a smooth transition. I said it would probably cut out there a lot long, you know, take it longer to cut out because it doesn't have that raw edge it is hitting on to start cutting. I don't know what they ever did. I ended up leaving there and come back home after that. Shortly thereafter, they done tore them boilers and all that down now. But anyway, I said all that to say all this. I cannot determine for you what you need to do or want to do or should do or ought to do. That's a decision you have to make on your own. Only suggestions I'll make is do what you want to do, what you really want to do, not what you think you ought to do or what somebody else tells you that you ought to do. Because that's a decision you need to make for yourself. Try to get educated on that job the best you can, really, before you get started on it. But if you know, whatever, if you're already going to school, summertime, get you a job doing that. Doing that if you want to work on houses or cars or whatever, you know, get you a job about cars anyway. Houses or anything you want to do that you're going to have some, that you're going to be doing part of it and somebody else going to be doing the assembly of it, what I should have said, That's what you need to get you a job doing, is assembling it. That way you'll know what you need to do to make that to where you can. I've seen cars where people would be showing on there that are fairly replaceable part on there. You take a bolt out and it won't come out far enough to like get the shock down or whatever, because it's hitting the block on the motor. So you got to pull the motor out to change the shock, something like that. That's the kind of stuff that you need to know before you go to designing some stuff. You need to work on it and you'll learn that out. But anyway, I hope some of this meanderings and rambling helps you some along the way. That's going to be a wrap up our episode of Welding and Wisdom Wednesday. I hope this has helped you some. I hope it's something in there that you find useful. And be careful, stay safe, go to church on Sunday. See you next time.